Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Pyro's Projects. I had a couple things I want to discuss real quick, and then we'll get started on the next project. First and foremost, I need you guys' help. I'm trying to turn this channel into something that'll help support projects and maybe get into bigger and better projects, but I can't do that if we're not playing the algorithms. So if everybody would be so kind as to like, share, subscribe, even comment, that helps all of the algorithms. And maybe I can make the channel a little bit bigger and we can do bigger, better projects. With that being said, I'd also like to show you, I had some stickers made, little decals to help support the channel as well. I did a quick little snip that'll be at the very beginning of the video. You already seen it at this point. I'm hoping to try and sell these for maybe $3 a piece to help, buy other stuff for the shop, maybe buy another camera, supplies, whatever, build projects. I have not figured out how I'm going to sell these yet because I don't have a website. I don't know what I'm going to do this, but I'm trying to figure something out. So without further ado, we'll get into the next project. All right, so what I'm looking to do is build myself a new welding cart to, not have this dumb setup. It's very challenging because the plasma cutter's so low, the welder is way up high, and neither one of them really fit on the cart very well. So what I'm going to start with is something I had built for my mother several years ago. When we moved to where I live now, to move water to the garden, which after she passed away, the garden went away. But this thing has been sitting in the weeds behind the barn for quite a while. And I decided I'm going to disassemble all of this, the water tank, the lines. There's a pump on here somewhere in this mess. Get it all stripped down to just the bare cart again. And I'm going to build the cart for my welder and plasma cutter. It will also hold my gas cylinder, and I'm going to try and put some kind of a top on here so I have places to set stuff. And I've got a little 2-drawer intermediate toolbox that I'm going to add in for like the consumables, flap disc, cutoff wheels, the plasma tips, welding torch tips, and all that good stuff. So I'm going to start getting this tore apart, and I'll get you caught up here in a few minutes. All right, so I got that tank and all the hoses and whatnot taken off of here. So what I'm looking at is I've got a couple pieces of 1x2 rectangle tube that are about 6 foot long. I'm thinking what I might try and do here is, say, cut it off so it sticks out about 8 inches. That way I can do a bit of a drop frame down in here to put the gas cylinder for the welder. Mount that. I'm actually going to try and make a space for 2 of them and mount the tanks here at the end. And then I'll just build my frame for everything else up off of this. Now, this cart's a little bit longer than I was thinking it was going to be. It's about 4 foot long, so it's actually going to have more room than I was originally thinking. So I think what I might actually try to do is still build the space for the welder and the plasma torch over on this end. And then this end I'm going to use for larger storage for the chop saw. I can put that in there, and that way everything can be together. The grinder, whatever. And then I'll build the frame up to hold the welder and plasma cutter. Build the frame up over here. I'll have the chop saw sitting on the bottom, whatever. I'll put the little drawers above that, and then I've got a large piece of plate that I cut out of that wood stove a while back. I'm going to use that as a worktop, say right about here. And then I'll just have the plasma and welder sitting over here. You can see some of my spare parts and random collected stuff sitting here in the corner. We'll see what happens. So I'm going to start getting things measured and cut and start test fitting things in, and I'll catch you up in a little while. Okay, here's what I've got so far. I cut 2 pieces of the 1x2 rectangle tube to, what was it, 4 foot 8 inches, so that it sticks out beyond the end of the cart. And then I cut 2 pieces crossbars at 21 3/4 inches, welded it all together, so I've got a nice sturdy frame to build off of. This piece out here is going to be where I put my CO2 tank. And like I said, I'm going to leave it wide so I can possibly set 2 tanks in there eventually at some point. What I'm going to work on next is coming up with what I'm going to do down here. So I've got this 1.5 inch rectangle tube, and I'm thinking I might just build a little frame that hangs down here off the bottom so that the tanks can sit right in this area, standing up, obviously. I normally don't like to grind my welds, but I may end up doing it on these corners here because I'm obviously going to build up off of this, and I'm going to need a flat spot to build off of. But for the time being, I'm going to leave this alone while I think through some things and try and figure out what I'm going to do going up from here. I do have a piece of 1/4 inch plate that was the base off of that wood stove that I'm eventually going to use as a tabletop surface. But I think right now I'm going to actually sit here and think through this little tank saddle that I'm going to build down here, and we'll go from there. Okay, everybody, we're going to get caught up again. I actually changed my direction. I originally said I was going to work on the tank saddle down here, but because of the way I want to do that, I realized I needed my uprights first. So what I did is I cut 4 lengths. They're 24 inches tall. I just reused some stuff from other things. So there's a couple of where I cut tack welds off. I'll grind all that smooth in a little while. But I cut 4 of them, 24 inches tall. And then I measured the separation at the base down here and cut a 1.5 rectangle tube to square in the top. Ooh, that was a little warm. And what this is going to be is that big plate right there. I'm actually going to set that on the top here so that I can put the chop saw up here, or, you know, if I'm tacking something small, I can just work on a platform at waist height. And then this section down here, I'm going to build all out of that 1 inch by 1/2 inch rectangle tube to put the welder and the plasma cutter. The welder I'm going to have to do on this outside piece here so that I can get the door open to change my wire reel. And then eventually at some point, I actually have, you can see it right there, that yellow cable. It's a Y splitter for the 220. I'm actually going to attach that to the bottom of this so that both machines can be plugged in like they are right now, but mobile. And I have a 50-foot cord floating around here somewhere that I can drag out into the driveway, still plug the cart in, and use everything. Hold on. I'm going to pause the camera, and I'm going to grab something real fast. Okay, this is the 2-drawer mid-box or stacker. I forget what they call it. Intermediate stacker box. What I'm actually going to do is mount that. Let me slide this a little bit. I'm actually going to mount that right here in this frame, all the way up to the bottom of this frame rail. That way I can, you know, have the grinder and drill or whatever down on the bottom, and I'll have the chop saw in the back. I'll have that plate on the top, and that'll give me pretty much all of the tools I will need while I'm welding or whatever right on the cart. You know what? I'll try and see if I can actually get this wedged in there and see if it'll stay up, and I'll show you. All right, I got it all wedged in there, kind of. But that's more or less what I was thinking. Is that puts the drawers right there at the base. The way I can, you know, have all my consumables, cut off wheels, grinding discs, whatever. And then down here I can have the larger tools. I'll put my chop saw, my grinder, maybe a drill, stuff like that down here in the bottom. Obviously, this black box isn't going to be there. I'm just using it to hold the drawer set in place. But that's what I'm chasing after. And then I got to obviously build the rack over here for the grinder, or not the grinder, the welder and the plasma cutter. But I don't know if I'm going to get all of that built today because I just realized my, what is it? The gas cylinder for the welder is getting really, really low, and I don't know when it's going to run out. So I'm probably going to have to run for a new cylinder probably tomorrow on Monday, but we'll see. Okay, everybody, I got my little toolbox mounted in there. Just put a cross brace underneath it and then built a strap to go down around the backside to hold in place. It actually ended up being a little tighter than I was anticipating. So I don't think I have to do anything to keep it in there. It's not going to come back out. And then this is the plate that I was talking about putting on the top. That way I can, toss my chop saw up here, or, if I'm working on something a little smaller, I can actually tack and work up here instead of wherever. I still have quite a bit of room underneath. My chop saw will sit in the back corner, and then I can throw my grinder, drill, whatever, up here in the front. I can also just coil up all my cables for the welder and the plasma torch and toss them in there so that as I'm moving the cart around, I'm not running stuff over. But I did actually ended up running out of welding gas. So I'm done for today. I'm going to have to run up Monday and go get the tank filled back up and be able to continue on it later this week, or we'll see what happens. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment. We'll see you next time.